Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's small business webinar. My name is Paul LaChapelle. I'm with Montana State University Extension, and very happy to welcome you all to the July webinar, small business webinar. I'd like to just start by reminding you that we are recording today's small business webinar, and we'll be posting it to the link, the archive link on our website. You can see I've posted that website address in the chat box. That chat box is available, by the way, for you to ask questions of our presenter. You can type them in throughout the presentation, and at the completion of the presentation, at about 25 minutes or a half hour into the webinar, you'll be able to unmute yourself and ask questions as well. So feel free to take advantage of either of those opportunities for asking questions or posting comments. Today's webinar is sponsored by Montana State University Extension Community Development, the Montana Economic Developers Association, the Small Business Development Centers, which are affiliated with the Montana Department of Commerce and the U.S. Small Business Administration, with additional support from the Great Falls Development Authority, University of Montana. I've also posted some tech support opportunities there. If you have any questions about how this platform works, feel free to call the number in the chat box or shoot me an email. Last, I'd like to say it is with great regret that I announce that this will be my last time hosting this webinar series. I'll be leaving Extension August 1st and return to my Montana State University department, the Department of Political Science, where my tenure resides, where I'll be starting to teach full time. It has been an absolute pleasure to work with you, Jason, and with your entire team and all of your colleagues throughout the SBDC system throughout the state. We have been doing this nearly every month since September of 2017. So we're coming up on our 3-year anniversary. And Jason, you'll be in good hands with my colleague, Joel Schumacher, who'll be taking over, and he's on our webinar today. So Jason, just again, a word of thanks for all the great work that you've done. It's been a wonderful partnership, and I'll be sure to stay tuned and join the webinars via a participant. So with that, it is my pleasure to introduce today's presenter. Jordan Stordahl is the SBDC Business Advisor with the Missoula Small Business Development Center. Jordan is going to be talking about unemployment insurance. So Jordan, go ahead and take it away.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us to talk about unemployment insurance, a topic that has exploded in popularity in the last 3 months. I'm a business advisor for the Missoula Small Business Development Center, but I was able to learn about unemployment insurance while I was working at Job Service Kalispell before this. And I just wanted to say that a great resource for unemployment insurance questions is the Missoula Job Service in town. I mean, I'm happy to answer questions and I can share my contact information, but being able to talk to someone is really valuable. And Missoula Job Service, you're probably going to get to talk to a human. Whereas if you call the unemployment insurance phone number, you're probably going to be on hold for a little bit right now if we're being really realistic. So anyway, just remember that Job Service Missoula is a great resource in your community, and myself as well. I'm always willing to talk to people about unemployment insurance. And with that, I will start clicking through my lovely slideshow. Today, we're going to talk about traditional unemployment insurance, pandemic unemployment insurance assistance, and the role that employers play when their employees are collecting unemployment insurance. Okay, so traditional unemployment insurance, this would be Like if you were thinking maybe a year ago before COVID, this would have been what you applied for if you were laid off for the season or the company you're working for closed through no fault of your own. So the first thing we want to talk about with unemployment insurance is eligibility. And you're going to see the bullet points on my screen. The first one is, did you lose your job through no fault of your own? Have you worked the last 4 to 5 calendar quarters? And are you physically able to work? So, two things I want to elaborate on are, so in the past, there was a really hard and fast rule that if you quit your job, you could not collect unemployment insurance. And I would say now that they've become a little bit more flexible on that. So we've actually been advising people that everyone has the right to file for unemployment insurance. So if you quit your job, you could still file and maybe you'll receive partial benefits. I mean, who knows? It's worth trying at least. And then when you become involved with unemployment insurance, you're going to hear a lot of people talk about calendar quarters. And 4 to 5 calendar quarters is like, it's about 18 months. So unemployment insurance is, they want to know where you've worked and how much money you made at each position in the last 18 months. And we'll get into that a little bit more. And okay. So if you answered yes to, I would say 2 out of 3, ideally all 3 of those questions, you're eligible for traditional unemployment insurance. And it's really important to collect all the information you need before you sit down to file unemployment insurance. Just about a year ago, Unemployment Insurance Division basically revamped their whole website. And one of their big goals was to minimize unemployment fraud. So they designed this online application that times you out very, very quickly. So if you have the page open where you need to put in your account number and routing number, and you don't move your mouse on that page for even 5 minutes, the system times you out. And if you get timed out a couple of times, the system locks you out. And then you have to call the unemployment insurance division and try to speak to a human about getting your application unlocked. And right now, we're trying to avoid calling the unemployment insurance division unless it is an emergency, because they are experiencing unprecedented call volume right now. Okay. All right. For your unemployment insurance, the very first claim, that brand new claim, that's going to be the most involved, the most difficult, often takes more than an hour. So that very first time you file, you should be prepared to sit for a little bit. But then the next claim, the system is going to remember a lot of your information, and it takes much less time. It's just that first one it can be a little bit painful. And then after that, it's going to be more like a 20 to 30 minute commitment, even less time if you're job attached. And I will talk about job attached a little bit later. Another bit of information you should try to collect before you sit down is the names and contact information for former supervisors for each position you've had within the last 18 to maybe 24 months. Unemployment Insurance Division, they're not going to contact every single former supervisor of yours, but they do check. I'm not sure how frequently or if there's a formula, but it's important to get that information correct. And if you leave it blank, Unemployment Insurance Division is just going to halt your benefits. So something to be aware of. And that's usually a part of the equation that takes people some time because, trying to remember who you worked for 2 years ago and find the best phone number to contact them at, it can kind of eat up a little bit of your time. So you want to get that done before you sit down. And then the last bullet point I wanted to include, even though I know a lot of public places like the library and job service offices, they're not open to the public right now, but when I worked at Job Service Kalispell, we had a lot of individuals who were going over to their friend's house to complete their unemployment insurance claim because they needed a computer and they only had a phone. Unemployment insurance, I would really recommend completing it on a computer. The online application is supposedly mobile friendly, but I would save yourself some frustration and just, if you need to get on a computer, go to your friend's house, whatever you need to do, you want to try and be on a computer. And what's important to remember is if you are using a public computer or your friend's computer, you need to know your email password, because that's, as soon as you create an account, unemployment insurance is going to want to verify your identity by, they're going to send you an email and you have to click the confirmation email in that link, or excuse me, you have to click the confirmation link in the email. And this is a really important step because there's no way around it. There's the only other way to confirm your identity would be to call in. And like I said, we're trying to avoid calling the unemployment insurance division right now. So it's really important, if you're not filing on your home computer where you're automatically logged into your email, you need to have your email address password so that you can open your email on this public computer and confirm your identity to begin your unemployment insurance claim. Okay. So when we talk about unemployment insurance, before COVID hit, unemployment insurance was managed on the state level, really. Like if you were filing unemployment insurance, you're filing it with the state of Montana. So there was traditional unemployment insurance through the state of Montana, and then the state of Montana offered this extended unemployment insurance benefits. So if you filed for these extended benefits, you could receive up to additional 13 weeks, whereas the standard unemployment insurance claim without the extension, I want to say it's 55 or 58 weeks. Or no, excuse me, it's about 6 months. Sorry, 6 months. But okay, yeah, there is extensions available if that's something if you feel that you need. I would recommend you talk to me or a job service office before you file for this extension. And just in the interest of time, I won't get into it too much today. Okay. So now we're on to pandemic unemployment assistance, which is a brand new program. This was, I think that the unemployment insurance division created it in April, and it was originally designed for people who were otherwise not eligible for traditional unemployment insurance. And if things were in a perfect world, I think the unemployment insurance division would like everyone to apply for traditional unemployment insurance. And if they received a denial, then they would apply for pandemic unemployment assistance. But in the effort to streamline things, you can now apply for pandemic unemployment assistance without a denial from the traditional unemployment insurance. I hope I'm making sense on this. If anyone has any questions, please let me know. So if you have time to look at all of these bullet points, when I was reading these, the first two I thought were pretty standard. But then as you get further down the list, I was surprised and impressed by really all the categories of individuals who would be eligible for pandemic unemployment assistance, such as you were scheduled to start a job and no longer have the job due to COVID-19. Maybe the offer was rescinded or you couldn't get there. You could apply for pandemic unemployment assistance. That was new to me. I didn't know that. And I'm glad they designed this system, because traditional unemployment insurance definitely would not cover that if you were scheduled to start a job and then for some reason couldn't. So good to know. Okay, so we've been talking about unemployment insurance on the state level. And then due to COVID, the federal government came in and said, we're going to add $600 per week to every unemployment insurance claim. And that, think of that as like a federal umbrella mandate program, and it's tacked on to Montana unemployment insurance claims. Another thing to remember is that that lovely additional $600 per week is going to be ending very soon. And once it stops, your unemployment insurance claim will just be $600 less. I'm not sure if they're going to extend it, since there are still quite a few people who are out of work due to COVID. But just keep in mind that as of today, that $600 a week is going away on July 25th. Okay. So for the employer's role in unemployment insurance, my first recommendation would be to create, so let's say, let me back up a second. Let's say you're going to have to lay off some of your employees because you've experienced a downturn in business and you just can't keep them on right now, but you intend to bring them back. I would recommend creating a Sides e-response account. So it's essentially a portal where you as the employer can communicate directly with the unemployment insurance division. I would call it like one step above email, in that it's a little bit more interactive and you can make changes to your account that will help your employees. Or if maybe you feel that you need to report that one of your employees is refused an offer to return to work. We'll get into that a little bit more in a couple minutes. So creating this Sides e-response account is really going to make things as easy as they could be for an employer. And I'm happy to help people find the page where you create your Sides account, because in my personal opinion, it is not marketed as much as it should be. And it's also difficult to find the page that you need. So if anyone needs assistance with Sides, I can show you how to get there and how to create that account. And then your next responsibility as an employer, when you lay off your employee or employees, this document that I have linked is 2 pages of information on unemployment insurance that your employees need to know when they file. And a lot of employers will use the language like, my employees are filing against me. And while unemployment insurance claims might impact you financially, it's important to think of employees aren't necessarily filing against you as the employer. It's not like combat. You're not like fighting one another. It's more of they're just filing unemployment insurance. That's all. You don't even have to think of it as us against them or anything like that. Okay. All right. Now that I look at this page, it's very dense, and just want to reiterate that I'm happy to speak with anyone to help understand all this. This is just a sampling of common employer questions, so just bear with me on this. The first one I thought I had to include was what is a business owner supposed to do if you, as the business owner, received the payroll protection loan and then you had employees that were laid off? And kind of good news on that is that it's really on the employees to report that. That's something that they need to call in and or email. So that responsibility really falls on the claimant's shoulders, because it's considered their responsibility to report any and all wages they received, even if it's PPP money. All right, so if your business experienced a downturn because of COVID, as a business owner and acknowledging that all of our time is very valuable, I would direct you to just apply for pandemic unemployment assistance. Before COVID hit, if you were a self-employed individual who needed to file unemployment insurance, you couldn't do it online. You had to call in, and they wanted you to speak to a claims representative to elaborate on your, like, the nature of your business, how many hours you work, why you can't work now. But because the volume of individuals filing unemployment insurance claims has increased so much, I would just recommend you go right to filing pandemic unemployment assistance. That's probably going to be your best bet. And you can also try applying for traditional unemployment insurance, but that's really not designed for self-employed individuals as much as pandemic unemployment assistance is. Okay. And the next question we've received a lot. What if you have employees who have been offered their jobs back, but are choosing not to return to work? So the best way to respond to this is to document. Really more detail is better than not enough. Include or document the exact position title of the job they had before COVID, the exact position title of the job they're offered upon return, any changes to wages, hour, date the offer, and really important, document why the employee refused to return to work. And you can, if you really wanted to be transparent, you could have the employee sign this document where you record all this information, but at the very least have it for your records. And then ideally you would have a sides account and you could log back in and amend your sides separation response. So you are essentially going to be alerting the unemployment insurance division that you offered this individual work and they refused to return to work for the following reasons. And you can see at the very bottom, including more detail is better than not enough. But one thing we really want to advise is don't include the employee's social security number in really any written don't do it on your sides account. Don't do it if you're emailing, but you can include claimant ID, employee's name, all that stuff. Okay, so you've laid your employees off, and now what? You're going to receive a claim filing and potential charge notice for each employee who has filed a claim for UI benefits. If you have a sides account, that document will show up there. As far as I know, they are still mailing claim filings and potential charge notices in the mail. So it's snail mail still. So that's another option. But once you receive this claim filing or potential charge notice, you have 10 days to respond. And it's important to do it in a timely manner because, well, if you, let's say you don't meet the 10-day deadline, the unemployment insurance division it's basically going to put a red flag on the employee's account and yours. And well, it's not great for anybody. So just remember, once you receive that document in the mail, or if it comes through on your sides account, you have 10 days to respond. Okay.
Pardon me for interrupting. This is Paul. There's a question in the chat box from Eric. Eric asks, what if your employees are hired seasonally? Is there a way to work with UI so I don't end up paying for time where I don't have employees working?
Do you mean like you don't want them to file UI in the winter, or?
And Eric, feel free to unmute yourself if you want to provide or type it in the chat, and I'll keep an eye on that for you, Jordan.
Okay. All right, let's move on to job attached, which is a big topic for, well, it's important to the employees because if you identify yourself as job attached when you file your unemployment insurance claim, you're exempt from the weekly work search requirement. So let's say I'm an employee or a former employee of a business and I'm filing my unemployment insurance claim. Typically, to remain eligible for your unemployment insurance benefits, you need to apply for one job a week. And you have to remember what you applied for, and you have to share that information on your claim. And there's space for it. You can't miss it. But it's a hard and fast rule that if you're not job attached, you must apply for one job a week while you're collecting your benefits. However, if you are job attached, you do not have to look for work. Job attached means that the employer has every intention of bringing you back as soon as work picks up again. And this could be a seasonal job. This could be, it could be service industry. And it can be, even if your hours are reduced, a lot of people don't realize that you can collect partial unemployment insurance benefits. So if I'm working 40 hours a week and during the winter it goes down to 20, then you can file for essentially 20 hours of unemployment insurance benefits. Partial benefits are, I think a lot of people are collecting partial benefits, and you could do them even for 1 to 2 hours. So if you usually work 40 hours a week and now you're at 38, you can file for partial unemployment insurance benefits. I feel like I saw Eric's question pop up.
Yeah, and I can read that for you, Jordan. The question is, or the follow-up, my company does political canvassing and employees are hired for short periods of time and not year round. So most of the year I have 0 employees, but I'm UI for having canvassers in the field.
UI for canvassers in the field. I I might need to have a phone conversation with Eric. um, it sounds like are your employees job attached when they file unemployment insurance?
And Jordan, I'll keep an eye on the chat for you if you want to keep going.
Okay. Ooh, too far. Okay, so last is this resource page, and I wanted to just talk through them real quick. The benefits estimator tool, you can plug in what you're making right now and kind of ballpark what you made at your former jobs. And you can get an estimate for if you were approved for unemployment insurance benefits, what you would receive. So that's a good little tool. And then reporting fraud. So unemployment insurance fraud, there's quite a few forms of it, but what they're seeing right now is essentially individuals refusing to return to work because they're receiving this additional $600 of benefits. And the fraud is it's not necessarily the refusal, but it's why they're refusing. If they're refusing to return to work because they're caring for someone who has COVID-19, then maybe they need to be collecting pandemic unemployment assistance. It's not necessarily fraud because you're returning or refusing to return to work. It's all about the reason why the employee is not returning to work. So, and next is if you clicked on the link, it would take you to a PDF that compares and contrasts scenarios that a lot of employers are facing, like I have to lay my employees off for at least a month. Can I require them to use sick time or PTO? Or can an employee who's on workers' comp also collect unemployment insurance? That's a really helpful document that I wanted to include. Amending your side separation response. This is just a good link to get you right to the page that's otherwise a little bit buried. But again, if you need any help with sides, please reach out to me. And you could even call Job Service Missoula as well. They're happy to assist you with sides because they want more employers to start using it.
And Jordan Eric did follow up. His response was no. And Jason also followed up and said, for clarification on Eric's question, I would inquire if the employees are classified as temporary or seasonal. And then Eric also followed up, what kind of effect does the classification have?
Well, I would say seasonal employees have a better chance of collecting unemployment insurance as opposed to a temporary employee. But I couldn't say for certain how it would, like, yeah, I'm going to stick with my original answer. Hang on. Hang on, let me see. Okay, I'm just reading the chat. Sorry, guys. Eric, I would love to talk to you more on maybe a phone conversation or an email. But yeah, I'll just talk about my last resource. So the last one I included, it's ONET, and this is really nothing to do with unemployment insurance, but I've found myself referring people to ONET simply because a lot of people seem to be, while they're laid off, they seem to be taking a step back and really reconsidering, is this the career path I want? How do I want to even go back to my old job if I were presented the opportunity? And ONET it's this great compiled resource of jobs and industries. And what's really helpful is that with each job, there's an industry outlook. So you can see if this job are there going to be more positions available, or is this industry kind of dying out? They refine the data by state, which I really think is great because I would consider Montana somewhat unique, and I don't really want to see industry data from California. That's just not going to be as relevant. But anyway, ONET Online, if you're at all thinking about changing a career or just want to see what else is out there or what types of job industries are really exploding right now, ONET is a really great resource. Okay. That is it.
I think we're caught up on all the chats. Jason did follow up and said seasonal would most likely be returning to employment. Temporary may or may not be the same person with no assumption of ongoing employment. I'm also going to post a link that Jason just sent me for some additional material for employers on layoffs and returning to work. So it's a great Grow Great Falls link there. And Jordan, I was going to ask if you wanted me, is it okay if I post your phone number and email address into the chat as well?
Absolutely. I would love for Eric to get in touch with me or anyone else who's on the webinar. I'm happy to chat about unemployment insurance.
Great. We've got just a couple of minutes. If anyone has any last questions, you can type them into the chat. You can do it privately as well. Just send it to me or to our presenter, to Jordan, or you can unmute yourself if you'd like. Any questions at all? Wondering if, Jason, if you have any thoughts, if you wanted to chime in as well.
Go ahead with Christine's question.
Christine, if an employee's last shift was 4 weeks prior to filing unemployment, does it work retroactively? Yes, but the employee needs to make sure that they give the date of their last shift. They shouldn't rely on their former supervisor to provide that information. The employee's got to put it in too.
Great, and I'll just make everyone aware, Jason just posted, he can distribute the slide deck to all the registered attendees for access to the links. We'll also post a PDF of this slide deck as well on the small business URL that I posted at the top of the chat. We do have just another minute or two for last questions.
I think Colleen has her hand raised.
Go ahead, Colleen. I'll unmute you. So go ahead, Colleen. You should be unmuted.
Okay. All right.
Go ahead.
So I'm an employer and I'm also a CPA, so I represent a lot of employers. And I just wanted to, I guess, comment on what Jordan was saying earlier about, it's when an employee or a prior employee files a claim, it's not costing us anything, or it's not us against them, when in fact it really does cost us in our premiums that we're going to pay in the future. So I just wanted to make sure that that was clear. it changes our ratings and it increases the cost or could potentially raise the cost of unemployment insurance. And so I would encourage any employer who receives a claim against them, if for some reason it wasn't on the up and up or they chose to leave, it's so important that the employer reply. And it's actually something that should go against their rating. When in fact, there's a possibility that that employee may be left on bad and they shouldn't receive benefits based on that employer's rating. I guess I just wanted to clear that up. It's not always the best idea just to leave it. It does directly affect your unemployment insurance rates. So just as a side comment.
No, I appreciate it, Colleen. Thank you.
Sure.
And Jordan, this is Jason. So I was curious if you know, I haven't stayed on top of this necessarily, but the pandemic unemployment assistance, is there clarity on whether or not that's going to impact employers' premiums?
It shouldn't.
Gosh, I hope not, but I'm not certain. I couldn't answer that definitively right now.
I mean, I think what was published by the governor's office initially when PUA came out was that there were some indications, but not clarity in my mind at least, that there would not be a negative impact on an employer's claims or premiums, but that's never been clarified, at least in my mind. So I was curious if you knew.
Not yet, unfortunately. No.
And Christine had another question.
Oh, and I could read that for our purposes of the recording. I had heard that during COVID, employers' ratings would not be impacted by use. Is this true when following up on Colleen's question?
I think that's my question too. That's the same question.
I mean, in the past, Colleen is correct. It would have impacted your rating. I don't know how it will impact due to COVID or, claims that were filed because of COVID. I wish I knew the answer, but unfortunately I do not. I'm wondering so let's say July 25th, they keep that deadline for discontinuing the additional 600. I wonder if then there will be some guidance issued on how it will impact rates. I don't know.
All right. Any last questions or comments?
Paul, I just want to take the opportunity to say thank you for everything you've done in our partnership over the last nearly 3 years. Sad to see you go. I know Joel will be great. I've heard excellent things about Joel from colleagues and others, but you've been extremely gracious with your time, and this effort would not have been successful or as successful without your assistance. So thank you very much.
Well, thanks, Jason. The feeling's mutual. It's been a great relationship and partnership. I look forward to keeping in touch and keeping posted of the webinar. So thanks again for all the great work that you've done, and keep up the good work, especially now more than ever. The work that you're doing is such an asset for the state. So thank you for the kudos, Jason. Any last comments then for Jordan or questions? Jordan, any last words from you?
Just to reiterate that Job Service Missoula is a great resource for unemployment insurance questions if you want to speak to a person, and you can always use my contact information that was shared. That's all. Thank you, everyone.
I'll just tag on that. There are job service offices throughout the state of Montana, since we have a statewide audience, and small business development center offices statewide. So Jordan can be the point of contact to get you where you may need to go if you're in a different part of the state. Thanks, Jordan.
Yeah, thanks everybody.
Thanks again, Jordan. Great job. And to everybody, please be well, be safe, take care of yourselves and take care of each other. Until next month, we'll see you. Bye now.
Bye guys.